Welcome to Elizabeth Ward's Assessment 3. Hello, today I'll be discussing inclusive strategies for students with autism spectrum disorder, using two detailed case studies, Student A and Student B, drawn from my recent DT rotation. This presentation draws on a wide range of evidence-based frameworks and research, including work from Mitchell and Sunderland, Mackenzie, and the SEN Code of Practice, and others. Before I introduce the students, it's important to frame this work within three models of disability. The medical model, which focuses on the diagnosis and the deficits within the individual. The social model, which sees barriers in the environment as the main challenge. And the intersectionalist model, which recognises that effective support depends on how individual needs and environmental factors interact. My approach draws most heavily on the intersectionalist model, using inclusive, adaptive strategies that respond to both the students' profiles and the classroom context, which in my case is DT. Let's begin with student A. He has a formal diagnosis of ASD and is highly sensitive to sensory input. When overwhelmed, his responses include crying, sitting on the floor, or withdrawing completely. However, he also shows strong aptitude when working with technology like CAM. In this rotation, we use TechSoft software. The challenge was to support his emotional regulation while maintaining his engagement and celebrating his technical strengths. I use a consistent combination of sensory regulation tools and structured routines in line with search. I embedded emotionally supportive routines into daily lessons. Student A wore ear defenders during loud demos and usually throughout the lesson, and would get time outside when overwhelmed. These proactive strategies align with the Department of Health's scoping review, which emphasises the importance of structured student-specific interventions in autism. The ear defenders helped him not get overwhelmed with the sounds in the workshop. However, I had to be cautious and I had to come over, tap him on the shoulder so he would know I was speaking to him. Emotional regulation was strengthened through metacognitive check-ins. I would ask simple reflective questions like, did the loud noise warning help? Or was the break outside useful? This follows Mackenzie's approach, where modelling and reinforcement help autistic learners recognise emotional triggers and practice self-regulation. Over time, student A began using these supports more independently, evidence of growing self-awareness. So when I would do demos, he would instinctively put the ear defenders on and also step outside when he felt overwhelmed with his work. Student B also has ASD and attachment difficulties. His needs differ. He experiences shutdowns rather than meltdowns and shows rigidity of thought when under stress. He preferred to sit at the individual desk and often required extended time to transition between activities. Student B also found it very difficult to interact with other students in the class, and that's another reason why he was on a table on his own. There was one other boy that he was friendly with that I would sit him next to when we were in the IT rooms, but other than that, he mostly worked independently, and he preferred that, and he would ask to sit on his own even if it was like a group activity. For student B, structure and predictability were key. I followed Seach and Mitchell and Sunderland in establishing predictable routines, a do now task, clear learning objectives, and a structured plenary. To reduce processing demands, I provided visual instructions, numbered task cards on his desk, and previewed any changes to routine in both verbal and visual formats. This strategy mirrors Davies' guidance on using accessible tools in DT for SEND learners. Shutdowns were managed calmly and without pressure. Following Mackenzie's recommendation, I gave him time and space to re-engage naturally. I might offer him time outside, and he would increasingly ask for time outside of his own accord. He didn't follow social norms, which affected the rest of the class and his peers. This was also dealt with in calm tones, that he wouldn't get overwhelmed. Sometimes I would ask him to step outside, and then I'd have a conversation with him outside and say that it's, his behaviour isn't fair for the other kids, and he wouldn't like it if that happened to him. But usually I'd have to keep it quite calm but I would have to set in those boundaries so the other kids in the classroom didn't feel like I was being unfair. Reflective conversations post-regulation were brief but important. Questions like, did the break help? Helps build emotional vocabulary and foster emotional agency, a critical goal for autistic learners. So did the break help? And also, did you think that was kind? Do you think you would be upset if someone did that to you? So I'm getting him to a place where he can effectively work in the workshop with others. Both students benefited from multimodal instruction, clear routines, and safe sensory practices. These approaches align with the universal design for learning, as discussed by Mitchell and Sunderland, and are echoed by Nazan, who emphasises that inclusive strategies benefit all learners, not just those with SEND. When both students were emotionally regulated, the entire class benefited. Lesson flow improved and peer relationships strengthened. My approach was shaped by collaborative planning. Castro and Palacara stressed the importance of cross-disciplinary teamwork in SEND practice. I regularly consulted students' profiles via class charts and sims, spoke with TAs when available, and updated interventions based on evolving needs. These adaptations reflect the statutory guidance set out in the SEND Code of Practice, namely the requirement for quality first teaching and individually responsive provision. In line with Korber et al., who used drama-based engagement to support social interactions in autistic learners, I adapted DT lessons by contextualizing learning in real-world outcomes. This reduced abstract thinking and kept students like A and B focused. Student A, for example, became the foreman of his group when he finished early, allowing him to help others avoid repetition and feel valued. Student B, in his individual learning profile, it said that in the future he wants to have his digital business. So he wants to go into develop software. So he was very, very interested in understanding how things work. I'm on my side and got him really enthused for the lessons. This also ties in with Davies, who recommends tactile, peer-based learning opportunities in DT for students with additional needs. So linking it to the real-world experiences, student A with being a foreman, student B with computer science, really got them excited for the rotation and what they were doing. In summary, both students showed measurable growth in confidence and regulation. Student A became more independent, while student B learned to manage shutdowns with support and self-awareness and work well with his peers. These outcomes were made possible by predictability and structure, proactive sensory support, calm, reflective reinforcement, flexible, inclusive lesson design. As Nazan reminds us, inclusion is not about making special rules for some students, but making excellent practice work for all students. I've drawn today on a robust body of academic research, which you'll find listed here. Thank you for listening.